You're watching Amador County's local television network, TSPN. And now, TSPN News with Tom Slivick. Comprehensive news because in today's world, you need more than just sound bites. TSPN, streaming on the World Wide Web, and now on demand at tspntv.com.
Final design and locations were determined in this process versus the conceptual level designs typically available for the EIR and conditional use permit. And just as an example, the tailings thickener, which is the tank that will receive the slurried tailings before they're sent back underground, when we looked at that, we looked at it and we said, do we need one tank or two tanks? Is it going to be a tall tank that's very small diameter? Is it going to be a very large diameter tank with a low profile? Will it be steel? We tried to source it for steel, and we've ultimately decided it will be concrete and it will be stained. But we go through all of those types of decisions during final design, and it's not done at the conceptual level. What we've done to help you visualize some of the things that we're going to talk today about is that we have prepared a number of photographs with simulations of what the project will look like if these structures and facilities are constructed as proposed and approved by the board. To kind of set that up, this is an aerial photograph, and basically north is to the top. The scale is down here. That's 600 feet. Amador City is up here. The old highway goes up the grade to Sutter Creek to the south, and the red boundary is basically our project boundary, and the facilities that we're talking about are down here, the shop and the mill, which are under construction, and then we've got the sand barn and the thickener tank over here, and then the 1,200 level portal. What we've done is we occupied 4 points and took photographs, and one is from the west on a turnout on the old highway, another one is from the northeast at the nearest residence, the Brightmans, and then we have two from the north side of Amador City up above the city. And I'm going to show you just some quick photographs of each of those. This is a photo taken last spring from the turnout. It shows String Bean Alley here, our access road coming down here. At this point in time, the mill is under construction there, and we have two roads that go up to the upper pads or the tailings processing area. And if the project's constructed, this is where we had a graphic artist do a rendering. Basically, you can see the land use committee. We worked with them to decide how the building would be. It's got a gray roof, and it's got siding that after it ages will be rusted metal, but you can see the mill building here and the shop building there. And then this is the proposed sand barn and the proposed thickener tank. And one of the important things that we did when we graded the project was we preserved the tree line so that the view looking at the project, we would not disrupt that tree line, and the structures would be beneath that to minimize the visual impacts. This is a view from the Brightmans, and the mill building's over here. And that's the 1,300 portal, that white thing right there. And then once things are constructed, this is what they'll look like. And the tank up above and the building right here, which is we're looking at the long side of it, it's 100 feet long by 40 feet wide. And now we can look, this is from Susan Bragstad, who generously allowed one of our staff members to come up to her property and take a photograph from there. You can see in the foreground here buildings in Amador City, and this is the old highway snaking itself up the grade to Sutter Creek on the south, and our project is located right in there. And when we put the buildings in, from this location, the sand barn would not be visible. The 1,300 level portal is slightly visible, and then the thickener tank, and you can see the mill building, which was, at this point when this photograph was taken, It was roofed in and the siding was on it, so it's basically all done on the exterior. This is just an example of what the 1200 portal will look like. This is actually the 1300 level portal, and basically it has an adit, and the opening size is 8 feet by 9 feet with an arched back. It has a concrete face and concrete wing walls, and the total height here is less than 20 feet, and that's what essentially what the 1200 level portal will look like. One of the things that needs to be considered in determining consistency, and again, we believe these are consistent with the use permit and the project description, we looked at the final subsequent EIR and Appendix J, which staff also looked at, and that identified an additional area for receiving and preparing the sand component of the ore for return to the mined out areas. This is a very general description, and the types of structures that we're proposing and the facilities that we're proposing are entirely consistent with that. At this point in time, they didn't know exactly how they would do that, so I feel that we would be here if we proposed a stockpile. We would be here talking about that. If we proposed a tank, we would be talking about like that as we are today. And the simple matter is that you can't come up with all the fine-tuning designs at the conceptual permit level. And this is a little bit more detail of why this whole thing is consistent with that site plan description. The thickener tank will receive tailings, which you might remember from the previous slide, and they're going to be pumped up as a slurry from the mill complex. The water tank is going to store processed water from dewatering of the tailings, and the stored processed water will be used to prepare tailings for backfilling in mined out areas, or it will be returned to the mill as processed makeup water. And then the dewatered tailings will be stored in the barn to be transported by truck to the eastern surface fill unit or prepared for backfilling in mined out areas. Again, all of these activities and these structures are consistent with that generic description in the Appendix J. We also look at, in terms of from the trucking, now we're shifting from the structures to the trucking, but trucking we believe is consistent. Condition 88 actually requires the board approval of substantial changes in construction. And our position is that transportation of tailings by truck is not a change in construction or location. The EIR in the 1998 FSEIR was intended to modify the previously approved project in 5 ways. And none of those 5 ways included eliminating the trucked material option for the slurried material option. And we've listed the 5 primary ways that the permit was amended, and that was the purpose of the EIR. So we look for consistency with the use permit approval, and basically what we find there is that the final subsequent EIR evaluated the slurry material option as an alternative to the truck material option. And this was associated with the addition of the western SFU units, which have been eliminated with development of the bypass. The slurried material option, when you read the document, was not adopted as the preferred alternative, nor was it adopted as a mitigation measure to alleviate traffic on the roads. The truck material option simply was deemed feasible and included as part of the project. One of the things that you see when you read through the use permit, in contrast to what staff has said, is that the permit requires slurring. We don't believe that's the case. And the simple thing that we see is, regardless of what type of mitigation measures or impact statements you go through, you find this interwoven, the use of trucking and the use of the sections of String Bean Alley and Amador Road consistent, whether you look at impacts on traffic, impacts on air quality, or impacts on noise. You find these same types of statements. So this is mitigation measure 30.1 and 31.1, And I'm going to paraphrase here, but it says, all project traffic shall not use String Bean Alley and Amador Road except for that portion of String Bean Alley between the String Bean Portal and the intersection with Turner Road, Amador Road, and that portion of Amador Road between the dewatering plant road or the surface fill unit access road and Turner Road, String Bean Alley intersection. These two are examples of impact statements from the use permit that show that common theme of trucking being part of the project. Number 40 deals with air quality impacts, and it says trucks will be used to haul process ore to the surface fill unit. 48, which deals with noise impacts, says that processed ore will be either trucked to the surface fill unit from the mill or slurried to the dewatering plant, dewatered, and then trucked to the surface fill unit. And this last thing is exactly what we're proposing to do here. We're proposing to slurry the material to a dewatering plant relocated at the mill and to then truck that material over to the surface fill unit. And this allows for a clustering of facilities, and it actually allows us to avoid some very significant capital costs that the project can't support at the startup volumes, to construct utilities over to the surface fill unit and to also construct a slurry pipeline. If there's one thing that you should take away from this, it's that no proposed project elements or operations constitute a substantial change. And in conclusion, if I could have the last slide, we believe that the board should approve the proposal as submitted, finding with either option 1 or 2 in the staff report. And of course, we believe that option 1, that the project as proposed, is substantially the same as the approved project. Alternatively, you could find that the project as proposed with the mitigation measures and conditions recommended by staff are substantially the same as the approved project. And one thing I'd say about this is we actually didn't look at these as mitigations. We built those into the design of the facilities so that they were consistent with mitigation measures already in the project. So with that, I'd say thanks very much, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. If you have questions about Tom Infusino's letter or some of the legal analysis of the environmental and permit documents, I do have our attorney, Chris Powell from Downey Brand here.
And as you heard earlier from Supervisor Richard Forrester, they approved the project. It's moving forward with a vote of 4-0. Louis Boitano reclused himself. And thanks for watching TSPN. We'll see you again next time. You're watching Amador County's local television network, TSPN.